Welcome to the City Futures Research Centre Seminar Series. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional land of the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation and would like to pay my respects to elders past and present, as well as any First Nations people joining us today. If you are joining online, please mute your microphone and turn off the camera during the presentation. Once we get to the Q&A, you're welcome to turn your cameras back on and unmute yourself. You can also put a question in the chat box and we'll be monitoring the chat for questions. Now I'd like to hand over to my colleague Parian Hosseini, who will introduce today's speakers.
Thanks, Georgia. Today we're delighted to welcome Professor Chris Pettit and Dr. Edgar Liu. Chris Pettit is a scientific professor and director of the City Futures Research Centre. Professor Pettit's expertise is in the convergence of the fields of city planning and digital technologies, including geographical information systems and planning support systems. He has published over 200 papers, given numerous keynote addresses at conferences around the world, and according to the Stanford Olivia 2024 ranking, is one of the top 2% scientists in the world. Dr. Edgar Liu is a senior research fellow at the City Futures Research Centre. His research primarily focuses on assessing the effectiveness of public housing estate regenerations in Australia, multi-generational family housing, aging in place, and concepts of community and place. Their presentation today is titled Co-Designing Digital Solutions for Australia's Housing Crisis, a spotlight on the Housing Analytics Lab. Chris is the project lead of the Housing Analytics Lab, and Edgar is the project manager. I will now hand over to Chris and Ed, and we look forward to your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Georgia. Thanks, Parian. So welcome, everyone. Packed room, I see. A few people online. So what Ed and I are going to talk about today is a project that we kicked off a year or so ago. I'm sharing, which is focused on work around the Housing Analytics Lab. So we're going to put a spotlight on some of the recent work underway that we're doing as part of the Housing Analytics Lab. And essentially, we're co-designing digital solutions to help address Australia's housing crisis. We'll go next slide, please. It's not working. Okay, so a little bit of background. What we have is this concept of information asymmetry, which is a concept first outlined by the Nobel laureate George Akerlof in 1970. And essentially what we have with information asymmetry, it exists when there's an imbalance of information between the key actors in a system. And this results in an unequal power dynamic between actors, i.e. those who have access to information and those who don't. And I guess really this is at the heart of what we're looking at when we look at housing. There's pockets of information in various agencies, in various industry partners, in the community housing industry sector, in academia and so forth. So being able to have that sort of shared view of what's happening in the housing system, which is a very complex system, as we know, is important. Colleague Laura Cromlin and colleagues published some work around information asymmetry in relation to major defects in residential multi-owned properties last year, and documented some of these issues pertaining to data fragmentation and data robustness. So the problem, housing supply and the delivery timeline bottlenecks. We all know it's talked about every day in the media. We've got 1.2 million additional dwellings that we need to build by 2029. And, how do we achieve this? And on all accounts, reports from many organisations report that we're not on track to deliver this. So government has put housing supply at the front of the agenda, and we've got this target. So that's one of the areas that we're focusing on in the Housing Analytics Lab, but not the sole issue. What we're really looking at doing in the Analytics Lab is what is the role of data technologies, for example, AI, machine learning, prop technologies, plan technologies, and so forth in planning inclusive housing delivery. So this brings up issues of trustworthiness of data and technology, trustworthy AI solutions, and so forth. And we also have a skills shortage, skills and knowledge of emerging technology, so that digital literacy. So the Housing Analytics Lab, what is it, you might ask? So it is both a physical space and a digital space. So we're going to go through work going on in both of these elements of the Housing Analytics Lab today. So I'm going to take you through the digital space, and Ed's going to take you through the physical space. And really, we set up this facility to share data, build innovative proof of concepts, and really engage with those who are making decisions and living the housing system in Australia. So the team, we have a number of lead investigators on this project, including myself and Ed. We also have Bill Randolph, Hazel Easthope. We have Bala Sandra. We've got Ali Chamaki. So they're some of the lead investigators. That's the leadership team from a UNSW perspective. But this is very much a collaborative project, a collaborative initiative. We have support through the Chief Scientist's Office, New South Wales. We have support through the Australian Urban Research Infrastructure Network. And our Housing Analytics Lab is, we're very proud that it's part of the UNSW or a node. We have some excellent support from partners Commonwealth Bank and Mirvac, who are providing us access to space in Tech Central that we'll talk about later on. We have Frontier SI, a spatial digital partner. We have SGS Economics and Planning, with expertise in planning economics and analytics. We have support from the Australian Research Data Commons, ARDC, PEXA Insights, and importantly, we have partnerships with a number of the community housing industry associations, National Shelter. We have the Community Housing Industry Association, Tenants Union. We have Housing Australia, giving us a national purview, and our tech partner, AWS. So really, this is the power of the Analytics Lab. It's bringing into play big tech, it's bringing in the community housing industry, it's bringing in various levels of government, it's bringing in the financial sector and academia, and trying to bring us together into this consortium, and also collaborating with others to help unlock the potential and look at those challenges facing us and how we better use data analytics to support housing decision making. So what are we doing? So looking at building data partnerships, and I'll talk about that briefly later on. We're developing proof of concepts and new analytical solutions, and we'll have a small tour of some of those that are underway. Ed's going to talk about the workshops and public engagement events that are in train, and importantly, the skill uplifting the next generation of city shapers. We're living a time where technology is moving rapidly with AI, smart cities, digital twin, open data. What does this all mean, and how does industry, government harness this and critically evaluate where to use it and where not to use it? So data partnerships. So we've got partnerships and data sharing within the collaboration, the consortium. We're working to advocate for greater data transparency and release across government agencies. And having our headquarters in New South Wales, we're able to leverage a number of the open data portals and infrastructure set up by and across New South Wales government. I'll show how we're doing that with our Property Explorer as one example. And expanding data partnerships both domestically and internationally. So I'm very pleased to announce domestically, we've established a partnership with Geoscape. So with Geoscape, there's a wealth of housing, property, building data that is available for research purposes for the project to explore proof of concepts. We're also working internationally and working with the OECD. They recently, earlier this year, ran a workshop on building related open geospatial microdata, including building footprints and other information, and how do we work in this community internationally. So we need good quality data to make good quality decisions. Okay, so there's other data products that we've been producing. So this is some work that's available on the National Housing Exchange, some work that Ryan van der Newland and others with support from CHEA and Homelessness New South Wales and Uhuru have established this unmet housing needs baseline data set across Australia at the LGA level. That can be accessed. There's a QR code there, and it also looks at projecting what that might be 20 years into the future out to 2041. So one of the data products that is made available through the Housing Analytics Lab infrastructure. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's a number of proof of concepts, analytical tools and solutions that have been built in the previous iteration of the Housing Analytics Lab. They're all available on this URL, the Australian Housing Data Analytics Platform. As I mentioned, we have the National Housing Data Exchange, where there's pointers to over 100 housing data assets across the country. We have the What If Scenario Planning tool, and we're currently reconfiguring this tool as part of the Housing Analytics Lab, and we're working with Central Coast, the first application of this What If tool in New South Wales. We've got the work of Bill Randolph and Lawrence Troy building the Affordable Housing Assessment tool, with Bala Sundararaja building the Property Market Visualization Explorer, and work with Swinburne University, Steve Glacken and Alish Markey building the Envision Simple Multi-Criteria Evaluation tool. So these are a series of tools. If you go into RDAP, each of these tools have tutorials. You can get a free log on. They're supported on the AWS cloud environment through our partner AWS. So more recently, I'm going to go through very quickly some tools that we've been working on in the last 12 months or so. We've been working on this automated development application classifier. We've got a housing policy bot that's AI enabled. We have this New South Wales Property Explorer powered by Map AI. We've got this Precinct Feasibility Explorer. So what do all these tools mean, and how can they potentially be useful for those across all sectors in the housing system? So I'm not going to talk about this very much because Bala has a presentation having a deep dive into this work in a couple of weeks, but essentially looking at the development approval pipeline and creating a database of what's happening with development assessments, and then being able to geocode, map these, and run AI across these to classify these and to look at a prediction of how likely time-wise that particular development application will be approved. So full plug there for Bala, as I said, who's going to go into a deep dive into this piece of work in 2 weeks' time. So the housing policy bot. So one of the proof of concepts that we're working on is this housing policy bot, where there's this huge corpus of knowledge that exists on the web, and this is focused in initially on the Australian corpus of knowledge, where we have reports coming in through Australian Policy Online, through Uhuru, through other reports that are released by government agencies across the country. So what we've been looking at doing is having these 4,000 plus reports linked into this housing policy bot. So researchers, it's been initially targeted towards housing researchers who are looking at what's been undertaken in the last 20, 30 years in Australia. They can come in here and ask particular questions and see what's that body of knowledge, and it provides some rapid, accurate answers. So it's really there to provide that first navigation point to the complex world of housing research and policy. And we might be able to access some of this information in more generic AI applications, and that's all good and well. But one of the reasons why we built the housing policy bot is to create an authoritative, accurate source of knowledge, point of truth. Because with generic AI solutions, the sort of accuracy levels and transparency and so forth can be quite low. So if you go into a more generic AI engine, you might get an accuracy of around 60, 75% on what's returned back to you. So you need that healthy level of skepticism. So what we've done with this is we've trained it up specifically just on this corpus of knowledge. So there's no other, I guess, reports or websites that are polluting the sort of the model. So that is also available. I encourage everyone to have a look. Have a look at the URL, and you can get your own username and password and play around with the housing policy bot. But just a quick sort of sneak preview of what it looks like. If you go into that URL, you'll come into this landing page, and you'll then be able to ask questions. How can housing, rental affordability for low income housing in Australia be improved? So it's going to that corpus of knowledge and scanning those 4,000 documents, and we've come back with a response there. So one of the highlights here has been able to link to those reports, so you can go back and actually have a deeper dive into any of those reports. So I think that's one of the important aspects of trustworthy AI solutions and dependable solutions, that they are accurate and there's transparency there, so you can go back and check that point of truth. Okay, so we're also just looking at the moment the National Construction Code, and this was discussed in the Economic Productivity Roundtable meetings in Canberra a few weeks ago, and being able to have that National Construction Code information available in the housing policy bot. So that's work that is just being finalised now. Okay, so another AI solution that we've been working on, this one's a partnership with Frontier SI and UNSW Sydney Futures, and working with the New South Wales government in their spatial services division with the Surveyor General Narelle Underwood and her team. We've set up this New South Wales Property Explorer, and this has been enabled through Map AI, which is also it's a technology and also a startup spin out that has been developed through City Futures and Frontier SI. So this is about AI empowering geospatial information, democratizing location-based data for those who don't have deep expertise in geographical information sciences and geomatics and those sorts of areas. So geo enabling our maps to enable a whole bunch of complex queries, and I'll give you an example on this. So the current prototype, and again, you can scan and access a demo version of this. What I'm about to show you, the New South Wales Property Explorer. If we have a quick look, it's got a number of data sets that are available for New South Wales. And then we can go in there and we can go and do suburb searches. We can do local council searches. We can go in here and go in at a granular level, at a property level, like show me 39 Waller Street, Kingsford. So a property around the corner from UNSW, and we can use a chat window. We can go in and interact with that property. We can ask questions about what's the size of the property, and it will return that size. We can ask it what's some of the local amenity and facilities for that property. Show me the local schools, or show me the closest public transport. Show me where the local parks are. And again, this is coming up with provenance where it's actually indicating which spatial data sets it's drawing upon to make these responses. So yeah, essentially we can start to chat with our maps, and we can ask some simple questions, and we can ask some more complex questions, some multi-criteria type questions if we're then starting to look at show me all the properties that are further away than 200 meters from a particular road, and which ones are valued between, say, 500,000 and $1 million. So we can start to run some quite complex spatial queries. Behind the scenes, it's doing sort of GIS operations like union, intersect, buffer, overlay, join. But for the user experience, it's chat enabled. So it's looking at democratizing this data and making this data a lot easier for people to interrogate and ask questions. So, show me similar properties to this, show me the other properties on the street, show me properties that are similar price or different price. So this is the New South Wales Property Explorer, and yeah, encourage everyone to have a log on and have a play and see what you think. Okay, another piece of work that we've been doing has resulted in this Precinct Feasibility Explorer, and this is a collaboration with the PEXA group, PEXA Insights, with Value Australia, .id, and also Archistar. So what we've been doing here is working with the Department of Planning around, we know we've got this transport oriented development strategy program that's been rolled out across New South Wales. So what we did is we built this prototype and did this proof of concept around the Hornsby transport oriented development area. And what you'll see is we've been able to run urban feasibility at a precinct level, evaluate the financial viability within the existing planning controls, and then run other scenarios to see what might be possible under various changing parameters. And outputs include how many additional dwellings are feasible, how many affordable housing dwellings can be built, and also this concept of value uplift. How much above and beyond all the other infrastructure contributions, what other value is being created through this process. I might just go to the video, but essentially the transport-oriented development strategy uses, it's quite simple buffers of 400 meters, 800 meter buffers, and looking at different FSR amounts within those buffers. So just run this short video showing the tool. So what we've got underpinning this is an automated valuation property model that values each individual property, and those layers have been inputted. So here's the 400, 800 buffers and 1200 ring to seal the deal. And then I'm not going to go into all the details here. There's a residual land value approach. There's a lot of inputs that are made into this, including all the required development contributions, the construction cost per square meter, and yeah, linking that in. And essentially, you run and play with those levers, and you'll come up with, see, not everything is feasible within 400 meters as we expect, or 800 meters. And those bluey green properties that they're feasible, the sort of the orangey, pinky ones, yellowy ones are not. And we can do this, and it's running this at a property by property level of geography, and then running that across the whole precinct. And so you can see those ones that are feasible, gives you this simple report, and it also tells you roughly the value uplift on each of those individual properties. And so then when we look at running those scenarios, we can see there on the left, you can see this particular scenario, there's around 7,000 additional dwellings. There is about 600 million of value uplift. There's about 411 affordable houses that are feasible in this particular development and how much land is being converted from industrial, office and other to resi. Through the ArchiStar generative design engine, we can then start to run building typologies, which line up with planning code, setbacks, solar radiation and so forth to see what that particular scenario might look like. So this was a proof of concept that we ran in collaboration with Value Australia, with ArchiStar, and this, I guess, is showing the way of what's possible if we can bring a lot of data and smarts together. We can rapidly explore these sort of what if scenarios. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Edgar Liu.
It's Chris, so I get the pleasure of talking to you about the actual physical facility of the lab itself. So the lab is located centrally, conveniently in the Tech Central Innovation District, or what is also called the South Eveleigh Precinct. We built it as a state-of-the-art facility within one of the Commonwealth Bank buildings, surrounded by a lot of the technical companies that you can see, and media companies as well. So we have easy access to a lot of our partners and also others who might be interested in the work that we're doing. It has only been open relatively recently, about 4 months ago, back in May, and we also very much welcome the Premier of New South Wales officially launching the facility itself, as well as the housing and planning ministers coming along. The space is not particularly large, but it's also very open. So we have a number of configurations that we can put together. So it is suitable to a number of different uses for collaboration work, for playing around with technologies, like some of the tools that Chris showed you, as well as hosting seminars like this and workshops, rather than just being a display center for the technology itself. And so since the launch, we've had a number of workshops in the space itself, primarily focusing on the delivery of affordable housing developments, aiming at the lower ends of the market. We're also looking to host a next workshop soon, looking at rental reforms and the outcomes of rental reform. So that one is a bit more policy-based rather than economics-focused. But as you can see in the photos there are some of the touch tables that are also in this room, seminar room, where participants actually play around with the tools, with the hands, and with the discussion as part of their discussions throughout the workshop space. Space is also going to be a training center, a training space for our next lot of city shapers. We have one course locked in at the moment that will be delivered in the beginning of next year, and it is delivered through the UNSW Employability Collective. They find it a particularly useful space because it is quite centrally located and is targeted at students, and they will be able to link in with a lot of the companies that are on site within the precinct, coming to some of the seminars on the, at the lab, as well as moving around in a real life working environment. But if you have any ideas for workshops that you want to collaborate with the lab with, please do get in touch. We'd be more than happy to discuss and work with you on those. And finally, that is just the lab itself.
Thank you. I don't have any questions in the chat just yet. Does anyone in the room have any questions for Chris or Ed?
Something I'm very interested in is emergency planning, Chris. Love all that and data. But when I was watching the RFS Commissioner last Thursday, budget estimates, so he was saying he was going into a meeting the following day, a steering committee, to with planning to maybe streamline what RFS do. I think there's a few question marks about some of the motivations for that. And you're talking about the disparity in power. They only have 5 million a year to do assessments. So you're nodding, Edgar, so you know about the dilemma with RFS.
Not RFS specifically, but we just finished the hearing inquiry, looking into disaster recovery,
Right.
including housing. And one of the sub-project focused specifically on the issue around data. So data sharing, who gets what data,
Yeah,
in what timely manner, how would that actually help? So I would encourage anyone interested.
but it's also who interprets that data.
That's right.
Because I'm looking at a development on the Northern Beaches. Where
Yeah.
it's sort of been experts at
Mm.
10 paces.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the latest one is Dave Owen's disaster recovery czar.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, actually making a statement in the Sydney Morning Herald about RFS overreach.
Yeah. And the lead
You
of,
know, and this is a massive issue. And it sort of speaks to what data you have, but the motivations of the people. And I'm looking at that layer just at Hornsby on Heritage, and I watched the
Yeah.
Dorothy Dixer go into, was it Minister Scully, or it could have been the Premier actually, about can we get rid of this heritage nonsense and build more houses? I think it was actually a Dorothy Dixer to the Premier. Yeah.
yeah, I think one version of that we also had like flood zoning, wasn't there too?
Yeah, so I guess it comes down to, I think, that trustworthy ethical use of the tools. And I think we're seeing that now because I think AI is everywhere now, we like it or not.
Love it.
It's there, but it's raising a lot of, good critical thinking around technology, because I think we have to look up long and hard. It doesn't matter what sector, what part of society you're in. AI is touching you in some way or form. And so the ethical, trustworthy, responsible use of AI, there's a lot of work going into that. Whereas previous technologies, whatever. So I'm hoping one of the good things that are coming out of this sort of AI revolution is that we do really think about how we're using this. Because you go, well, is it trustworthy? You put something in and what does it come out? But it's not just AI, because I mean, AI and the tools that we've shown and other AI tools, it's all based on what data you put in and what your intentions are, like you were saying. And so, and with all data and technology, I guess with all research, it all is biased based on whoever's interpreting it.
But you did frame this lecture with the first slide on power.
Yeah.
And I thought that was,
Well,
thank you very much. And I wondered whether you've had any of the, say with Hornsby, or particularly more so with Ku-ring-gai, because there's much stronger groups there like folk, whether you've had any of those people in to run this through.
no, the short and the long answer is no. Because that was and this is also one of the challenges that even what we have in our lab or other labs or private sector or government is it's a broader issue that you raise around urban governance and involvement, inclusivity in processes.
Well, yeah.
And I guess I will say that precinct feasibility explorer is now being used by Randwick, Newcastle and Shoalhaven.
Which ones?
That Randwick.
Randwick's using it.
Yeah. Shoalhaven.
All right.
And
So did Merrill sign up for it? Or who signed? What level did they sign in?
I have to get.
Sorry, curious because I was talking to somebody in planning yesterday.
Yeah. So look, councils have access to these tools, but it's also then how they're used, whether it's a council using it or the state government or someone else. Are they using it to come up with a collective?
Yeah, they're not transparent now, so they're not going to become, it's not in the culture.
Yeah, I think
not in the
that
Randwick culture.
needs to. Well, I think whoever's using whatever tools, that's been one of the challenges, isn't it? You've got community has its voice, whatever tools or not it's using, whether it's just using its vocal, voice and other tools, all the way through to all the key actors. So, I mean, it's another project that we've actually got looking at, I guess, that whole housing development pipeline and trying to then ascertain all the key actor groups and what are their views on AI and where it's working, not working. But I think that's a perennial issue, particularly I've seen in New South Wales and parts of Australia, that we do a a fairly poor job, I think, of having that deep engagement with the community.
Well, you remember it'd be about 10, 12 years ago when we were doing the Lego blocks in the southeast. Yeah. I mean, and it horrifies most people. So I don't know how, if you presented that to the good people of Hornsby whose properties are there ready for uplift, what the reaction would be.
Yeah, well, I mean, it raises the
I'm
whole
not trying to be
challenge.
antagonistic.
No,
in
I'm not.
In the least, I'm just.
It's
realistic.
they're really good points, but these are not easy solutions.
No.
And I guess the change of our cities is just not easy, full stop. People by their very nature, whether it's whether your view it's a good change or a bad change, or but any change is difficult for people to process. And when you look at 1.2 million houses and trying to accelerate growth, you know, it's a lot for people to take in. And what does it mean? And I think these are really good questions. What does it mean, you know, for how we plan our cities on a changing climate? And, you know, what does it mean with heritage? And what does it mean for the infrastructure required in these areas? Yeah. And, you know, all these tools don't work to accommodate all of those elements yet.
You've got other questions.
We have
I'm dominating.
Philip Gross, hands up. Philip, you can go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much for the presentation, Chris and the others. It was great. Actually, I'm returning to the Ku-ring-gai thing, and there was a webinar recently, and what the council did was, in collaboration with the department, was relook at it. When the department did their first analysis of 16,000 dwellings, they did the 800 metres, and it didn't take that much research to find that they'd covered a lot of heritage, sites that were already strated, which is very difficult, but also tree canopy. And by doing the analysis, they've moved things around, got the same amount of dwellings by putting them in different places. And I guess my question is, could a council and a community, and they ran scenarios with the community, is this system simple enough that a community and a local council could test these different scenarios using these tools you're developing?
If it's set up and configured appropriately, the answer is yes. And then we're sitting here, Phil, as you know, in the City Analytics Lab, which has a number of these touch screens. So it's around the process too, how you expose the community and the collaboration. And the Housing Analytics Lab, the physical space, is also set up where we you know, ideally co-design these solutions. So, you know, then the process of having the community come in, whichever process, you know, you take to do that, working with council, working with others. And I guess, you know, those sorts of methods like geodesign that come from Harvard University, which are trying to break down the silos between the different actor groups and different, government stakeholders and other stakeholders, and bring everyone in. So I think, you know, ultimately, you know, dealing with this issue of information asymmetry, you would have all the key actors that you needed, all having access to the same data, all having access to the same data and models and AI, if you will, and being able to collectively agree on the trade-offs and explore those difficult scenarios.
And would the tool have the I guess the intelligence to say, well, there might be rules about heights and all that, but say, well, could we say turn off height, but say you mustn't overshadow, so you may get a result that might have been unexpected, but is better overall, but it does question some of the rules to get a better outcome.
Well, I think the rules are in the tools, and they can be altered, you know, to explore these different envelopes. So I guess that's what happens in practice, as you would know. I mean, in planning and approvals, that, you know, you can get that approval based on the existing code, or you can, you know, there's a discussion around trade-off, whether it's extra. And I guess if you look at the affordable housing, you know, you can get extra height if you have more affordable housing. I guess that's sort of a carrot approach, which is one way of doing that. But yeah, I mean, these tools are all quite flexible now if they're configured correctly. And yeah, I mean, those are the sorts of applications I'd like to see that these tools, you know, if we wind forward in 5, 10 years, that, you know, this is how, you know, decisions are supported. But we do need to get that transparency and agreement, who's allowed to be in the room, and, you know, how the tool's used and, yeah, made accessible.
Thank you very much.
Another question from Kajal. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great presentation. And my question is with respect to the tools. Are these tools free to use at the moment? Because it'll be good to test them out and work out some, specifically with the precinct feasibility models and stuff.
So some of these tools are, and some of those you need to speak to the consortium who have developed those tools. And that raises, you know, not all tools, depending on the data that goes into the tools, if it's commercial data, then typically those tools have a different application structure for fee. A lot of the tools that we have that I've shown, you can go and log in and either use a demo version or another version and data sets. But I think it's not one of the other challenges of this whole information symmetry is all the data sets are not open, right? There's certain data sets that government makes available. There's other data sets that you can't get which is privacy concerns. There's other data sets you can't get easily unless, you know, they're commercial data. So we try and, I guess it's based on the sort of the FAIR principle, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. But I guess it also comes down to, you know, how those tools are supported financially. But if you go into the Australian Housing Data Analytics Platform website, you can get access to a bunch of tools.
We have a question from Mark Nutting. It's just on the screen here. It says, some affordable housing is provided in perpetuity, other is time limited, for example, 15 years. Which output do the models refer to? Is there a way of comparing the two?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we have in the model at the moment and the tool, as all tools hit their limits and have got further work to go, is we don't have that whole sort of time sequencing. So essentially, it's looking at if a developer or someone was to invest in a development in that particular precinct, and it's based on discounted cash flow, how much, you know, if they're going to then sell those and develop that site, how many of those could they afford to do at that point in time that are affordable? Now, I guess, yeah, working out what it means 15 years later, because as you know, the policy is that for those agreements, they need to be made affordable for 15 years. Moving beyond that, comparing the two is not something we've done yet. It would be a very interesting research and applied piece, but yeah, the tool doesn't answer that at this point in time.
I have another question from Jackie. The New South Wales government has its land IQ tool, which helps assess feasibilities. Can you provide a quick summary of the differences between your product and theirs?
Not really, because I'm not going to do a comparative analysis on different tools. I think you really need to, all these tools are moving quickly in their development. And, you know, I haven't seen the latest version of Land IQ in the last few months. So I guess essentially though, my understanding is Land IQ comes from more of a computational design, architecture design background, whereas the precinct feasibility is driven more through the econometrics and the property value dynamics that occur. So there will be overlap between those tools, but I guess in any and there's other tools out there too, right? And I guess that's an important point. There isn't one tool to rule them all, and I think in a society as ours, we want to have competition, healthy competition, and consumer choice of which tool or tools that are available. So I know Land IQ is definitely playing in this space as well, And yeah, I think you know that it's like AI. There's so many tools out there. We are doing some work, I guess, as a member of the Planning Institute of Australia Plan Tech Working Group, to try to map out this growing sort of evolution of tools and what is available for various users to explore and apply.
And the last question is, how often is the property valuation data inputs updated? The market can change so quickly.
Yeah, that's a good question, Jackie. So I guess if you're talking about the Precinct Feasibility Explorer, coming back to the particular model, the automated valuation model that underpins that, is a model that's used, I guess, underpins mortgage assessment used by the Commonwealth Bank, used by Westpac and other financial institutions. It's updated, I believe, monthly.
I think that's all for the questions today. Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation today, Chris and Ed. I'll just close the seminar series. Thank you to everyone who joined us, both online and in person today. Just a quick reminder that our next seminar will be held in 2 weeks and will follow on from today's presentation. Dr. Bala Soundaraj will present 2 complementary studies conducted by the Housing Analytics Lab. His presentation is titled Leveraging Artificial Intelligence to Improve Planning and Housing Development, a study on planning application, classification and analysis using natural language processing. Thank you for your time and I hope you all have a great afternoon.